Hello, everybody. This is Lydia Tate. LydiaSpeaks.com is my website where you can find me to purchase my book or to register for a session or even to just reach out to us directly and schedule a time for a speaking engagement or just a coaching session. Again, the website is LydiaSpeaks.com, as in my name, Lydia. And my name again is Lydia Tate. You can also reach me through my email, coaching@lydiaspeaks.com. Today we'll continue our conversation on financial wellness, and we will be focusing on one way of getting out of debt. We spoke recently about the debt snowball method that can help you to, effectively get out of debt, and that method requires that you do some work. If you did not listen to that, please look it up on YouTube. You'll find it. It's under Lydia Tate. And if you need just further information or just assistance with setting your debt to get that process to work, certainly you can reach out to us and we can be able to help you. So today, again, I will be talking about the debt relief program, which most of us have heard about. This is very different from the debt consolidation program. The debt relief program works totally different. So we'll talk about what it is, why it's an option, and how it works, and what other solutions we have out there that perhaps may be options for you in future that we can look at as well. Again, this season, we're focusing on getting out of debt. We've spoken about the debt snowball method. We're talking about the debt relief method. Typically, when you get to the debt relief method, you've gotten to a really, really bad place where you perhaps don't have income, or you just have too much debt and you don't know what to do, and the creditors are just harassing you, and you just absolutely don't know what to do, or you don't have a way to raise the money to pay them. So this is one of those methods that you use just before you get to bankruptcy, or before you get to just consolidate or to debt consolidation, for instance. And it kind of works almost like debt consolidation, but it's debt consolidation, you can also go to a bank to consider doing that. So this here is just a method that requires a lot of thought and a lot of strategy before you get into it. So again, we'll be talking about what it is, how it works, and who can qualify for it. So before we get there, I like to kind of talk about a little background about American debt. So in late 2018, the total household debt in the US reached 13.54 trillion. 2018, just a couple of years ago, our household debt in this country was $13.54 trillion, not millions, $1 trillion. That's quite a bit of debt. So that means that you and I and your neighbor and the next door neighbor and everybody else around you owed some financial institution money, and it was a lot. So again, consider what's happened between 2018 and today, and think about how much more debt the American household has accumulated here recently, especially in 2020. Consider how much you've accumulated. I know that many people with perhaps who lost their jobs use their credit cards to sustain them. I know many family members who were affected because the breadwinners lost their income, so they had to survive on credit cards, and now they're just getting back to work and trying to find ways to pay off their debt by maybe getting a second or third job, or even just considering some of these options that we've talked about, or considering the debt snowball method, or considering having conversations with their banks. So they are people who are really affected by these issues, and they're looking for solutions. So this video is definitely for that person who's seeking to find help or find some relief with their debt. So again, this 13.5 trillion research was done by the Federal Reserve. So these statistics are pretty accurate. And they may sound a little startling, or even confusing to hear how much debt we, the Americans, are in. And that means that if you're in debt, you're not alone, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. We just have to to face this and tackle them accordingly. But the fact is, financial crisis happens to everyone. It happens to you, it happens to me, it happens to my neighbor, it happens to all of us, and we shouldn't be ashamed of it because there are solutions. I think that's a good thing about it being in this country, that there's always a way, there's always a second chance, there's always a third chance. There are ways that we can manage the situations that we're in, but if we don't manage them, it doesn't change. But if we take time to manage them, then our situation changes, and it may not change as fast as we want it to, but it does change. So you want to consider some of these options that we're talking about to be able to get your finances back in order. So among those other strategies, again, is the debt relief program that I mentioned to you. And the debt relief program just kind of helps you with negotiating, or having these agencies help you with negotiating your debt with your creditors, or settling the debt, or just finding a way to reduce some of the balances to get you some relief. And what is it? What does this program really do? So the debt relief program, which some people refer to it as a debt settlement program or debt adjustment program, it promises to help get you out of debt. And how does it get you out of debt? Again, like I said, it helps you get out of debt by negotiating, by settling, or by changing the terms of your debt with your creditor. And so that would be the debt relief companies that would do the negotiation for you, or the settling for you, or just work with your creditors to reduce your balances. If you have credit card, for instance, a debt relief company might be able to negotiate with you and your credit card issuer to reduce the total amount you owe. You may not be a credit card, it may be something else that they're able to negotiate with you. And sometimes that's called debt forgiveness. It is possible that some of these debt relief programs can actually get your whole debt to be forgiven. Sometimes it's just a little bit of it that can be forgiven, but the terms, may not always be as good as it sounds. I'm just going to be honest with you about how these programs work. It may not always be it may not always work as good as it sounds, okay? So how do you qualify for this debt relief? And I'll tell you why it may not always be a good thing. So you make your decision. You get the information, and then you decide, you make an intelligent decision based on what works for you and your family. How do you qualify for debt relief? So to qualify for a debt relief program, you likely need to demonstrate, you have to demonstrate that you have a legitimate financial hardship. So that means that you won't qualify if you're just a month or two behind on your bills. You're likely to have, you have to be, to owe a lot, like a substantial amount, like $7,500, for instance, is considered a substantial amount to be considered for this debt relief program. And you have to be a few months behind on your payments. It couldn't just be that you're 1 month late and you're considering debt relief. No, you have to really, really be behind. It could even be that debt has been charged off because the balances are too high and you're not able to pay on them. So those would be some of the times that would qualify you to do this. So the debt relief program companies, they typically require you to make monthly deposits into a savings account of some sort. You have a conversation with them on how that would look like. So they ask you to, instead of paying your creditor, to put the monies in a savings account for during the time that they're beginning the negotiation process. So you, instead of sending that money, your monthly payments to your creditor, you put it in that savings account. And the idea here is to make creditors begin to worry that you won't pay at all, incenting some level of debt forgiveness with them. So, so you have the money, maybe you don't have it, or you have just a small amount, you put it in the savings that the debt relief company has advised you to put the money in. And then, once the creditors start panicking, so to say, then the debt relief program agency can then give them an offer, and they will use the funds that you have in your savings account to try and negotiate with the creditor on what would work for them. And what's the catch here? Some of it may sound too good to be true, that, okay, all your debt is forgiven and then it just goes away, right? So according to the U.S. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, debt relief programs are notorious for offering unsound financial advice, like maybe being expensive or being downright risky. This is what the Federal Financial Protection Bureau says. I mean, and we have to listen to that because it is a risk deciding to use the debt relief program. I mean, like I said, you only choose to use these guys if you absolutely know you have no choice. If you're close to filing bankruptcy, for instance, I would say before you file bankruptcy, consider this. That's what I would say. Some people may have a different opinion, but my counsel would be before you get to a place where you're filing a bankruptcy, consider talking to a debt relief organization to settle your debt. All right. So what's the catch? What's more? What are some of the risks? Like I said, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau says that they can be expensive and can sometimes they don't provide sound advice. So you want to know what your risks are when you're choosing to sign up for a debt relief program. One is it might not work. You may put money in a savings account. They may negotiate with your creditor, and the creditor may say, "Oh no, we don't want to do this," and you still end up owing the money that you were owing initially. You can incur even additional debt. That's the second risk, because now you haven't paid them for 6 months. You have the balance out there, and then perhaps they even charge you additional fees for late fees or interest during the time of the negotiation. And you end up owing more than you initially owed when you were making those minimum payments. Then we have the debt relief program that can hurt your credit. Of course, if you're late 6 months, your credit is affected. So, that goes without saying. So that's another risk. Again, while they're working with your creditors, you're supposed to establish an independent savings account where you're putting money into versus paying your creditors. And during that time, when you're not paying your creditors, there's no credit freeze. Your credit will still reflect negative activity. So you still will be hurting from having bad credit history there. And then it's also an expensive process. Like I said earlier, the chances that they add additional fees during the time that they're negotiating are high. So you still will owe what your previous balance was plus additional money if this program does not work well. You could also get sued. If you really past due and your creditor decides that they want to collect on what you have not paid, that's a lawsuit. It's a lawsuit that means more money, that means some negative history on your credit, reputational risks as well. So there are many risks that come with this debt relief program that you have to be aware of. And that is why I said it absolutely must be the last option before you consider bankruptcy. That is my counsel as a financial consultant. So, but you choose what works for you and your family again. But don't think you can avoid the taxman here. So if you owe money and you go through a debt relief program and your debt is forgiven, you're lucky enough that you work with an agency that knows how to negotiate, and the debt is forgiven, then you have to pay taxes on the amount that is forgiven. So you want to talk to your tax accountant or your CPA or whoever does your taxes and get some information on what what the consequences are with that amount of money being forgiven. So it will be considered income to you, even if you're not employed, and you have to pay taxes on it. So you want to be sure that you are informed, that you're aware that the tax money is going to come get you. Because, now you have somebody else's money here that they're going to report to IRS as well. And that under your social security number, and that has to agree with what you're filing on your taxes. And typically when a debt is forgiven, whether it's through the debt relief program or through your creditor or somebody else, they will send you a document that you have to provide to IRS to show that the debt has been forgiven. Let's say, for instance, you have a short sale on your property. In some states, I remember in 5, 6 years ago, there were some places in the country that were were affected by what was happening in the economy. And so there were a lot of properties that the values of those properties went down substantially. So what did that mean? There's some people who wanted to sell their properties had to sell on short sale because the property was worth more than what they could sell it for. So in that case, you sell that real estate property and you sell it for less than what the value is, then whatever the bank decides to forgive, that would be considered actually income to you that you'd have to report to IRS. So you just want to be cautious with these agencies or the relief programs that forgive your debt, because if you don't take care of it correctly, then you'll end up owing IRS as well. So now we've taken care of the risks. We do have other programs that actually you can consider out there. So, but before I get to that, I just want to mention to you, if you are considering a debt relief program, you probably, before you agree to a debt relief program, you want to, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau recommends looking into alternative solutions like non-profit credit counseling. These counseling services, they will provide solutions. They'll provide educational material. They'll provide individualized financial counseling and even debt restructuring services to help consumers get out of debt. So consider some of those non-profit credit counseling agencies that would help you get out of debt before you go through the debt relief program. And this is a recommendation from our Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is a federal bureau that protects consumers, obviously. So a recent study shows that there can be effective strategies to addressing consumer debt. So I would say that you look into those as well before you settle for this option. So the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau also recommends working directly with your creditors and debt collectors by calling your lenders or explaining your situation, and you discuss options. You might be granted grace periods, lower interest rates or options to join a program that may work for you. And this is so true, actually. I think that sometimes we're not informed, or we may not talk to our bankers, or we may not talk to our other creditors because we don't believe that there are options out there, or we may just avoid them because we just don't want to be bothered with being called about a debt. But financial institutions will work with you, especially now that we have so much going on. We have COVID. There's so much going on, and some people may not work because they're ill, or some people may be affected by maybe a partner not being able to work, or they not being able to work, and they have the responsibility of taking care of their family and themselves. It's a good time to take advantage of what the financial institutions have out there. There are several relief programs available out there that are in line with the current pandemic. And I would challenge you, if you have a debt, to talk to your financial institution and see what they can assist you with. Ask them questions like, can we lower my rate? Or can we just get a fixed interest rate perhaps on maybe a credit card that has a variable rate? And yes, they will close the credit card, but that's okay. If you're paying 23% or 26% on a credit card and they shut it down and they say, okay, we're going to charge you a 4% fixed for 3 years and pay off this debt, and you don't default on it, by all means, do it. These are options that are available. I've seen it many, many, many times, where financial institutions are able to work with you to lower your debt, or to help you pay off your credit cards or even your other debts. And I would also encourage you, if you have a lot of debt, to consider. I always say consider getting a second income, or look at how your taxes are calculated on your paycheck. Perhaps consider taking advantage of what we have out there, where you avoid paying your taxes and get that cash flow back into your pocket so that you can use it to pay off your credit cards. Just consider some of the resources, or some of the programs that are available right now because of what's happening with COVID. Okay, look at your budget again and see where you can find some loose cash, where you can save some money. Just check on your insurance, see if you can save money on that. Check on your W-4 and see how you're reporting, how many people you're claiming in your household, and see if maybe you can modify that so you can have additional cash coming back to you. Find if you can get an additional job, a second job, or even 2 jobs working from home. Consider selling things on eBay. I mean, they just be creative, or use your talent to generate income. Use your talent. If you're a good cook, cook and sell the food. If you're good at making clothes, make clothes. We all are gifted in one way or another. If you're good with just whatever your ability is, if you're good with helping people with the yard, do it. I mean, there's no shame in working to generate additional income. By all means, find ways to generate income so that you can get out of debt. Again, before you get into the debt relief program, consider the risks and then strategize and think about it. See if it's aligned with your priorities, see if it's aligned with your personal goals, and see if it's actually going to provide you with a permanent solution for your debt. If it's not a program that would work for you, then the first thing you need to do is talk to your creditors. I mentioned yesterday that, or the other day, that we can use a Snowball method to pay off our debt. Even before you list down your Snowball, your debts, to start paying your highest balance to your lowest balance, consider also negotiating with your financial institution so that those balances can be lower so that you can pay them off. If it's too much, then consider talking to some of the nonprofit organizations that are available in your city or in your county or in your state that can help you get out of debt or can help you with debt consolidation and give you some relief so that you can sleep better at night. You have to also understand that your priority always is to make sure that you have shelter, you have food, and that you have clothes. Just make sure that your basic needs are met before anything else. If you're at a place where you have so much debt and it's overwhelming, consider your priorities first. Make sure you have shelter, you have a place to stay. I'll say it again, have a place to stay, have food to feed your family, and you're not walking without clothes, that you have clothes also. And then the rest, you can work through them. At least you can work on obtaining peace of mind as you work through the process of getting out of debt. But even as you work towards getting out of debt, I always say that we have to do everything prayerfully. We have to do, if you know that you have gotten yourself into a place where you have a lot of debt, that means that we have not handled our finances with wisdom. That means that we have to seek God for wisdom so that we don't fall in the same place. And as I mentioned on the previous video, a lot of times when we find ourselves in these situations, sometimes it's because we have made the wrong choices, and it's definitely a psychological decision where sometimes we get out of debt because we're making emotional decisions or because we just lack self-discipline. So this is the time where we have to pray for wisdom also, and we have to pray for self-discipline, and we have to pray for knowledge to be able to understand and know what we're doing, and we have to ask to live within our means, learn to be content with what God has given us, and also work harder towards achieving better in every way, like find ways to increase your income so that you can be able to do better. And I'll challenge you, even, if you are a Christian or you believe in the Bible, which I believe in the Bible, I challenge you about your discipline in ministry, in serving God, in giving back to God with what you have, because if you give back, then he certainly blesses you. I also challenge you about your tithe. How much are you committed to your tithe? How much are you committed to supporting the kingdom of God? So I want to challenge you with that also. And I hope that this lesson of debt relief gives you some knowledge, or just gives you information to help you make intelligent decisions as you work towards getting out of debt. Again, thank you. I'm always humbled to come before you to talk about these finances. Like I said in my previous video and the other videos I've had, I come to you humbly from personal experience and obviously from the skills that I've learned in the industry that I'm in. and also just maybe just gaining knowledge along the way, because I'm very interested in financial wellness and I'm interested in financial freedom. So I hope that the information that I've shared with you helps you. And if you want to learn more or get additional information, or you need a mentor, a coach to help you with your debt, you feel free to email me at coaching@lydiaspeaks.com, and we can connect and I can be able to support you. Thank you very much and have a blessed Tuesday. Ciao.